Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Stylosa, and today on Pro Strats, we are going to take a look at a very funky strategy. This is what we refer to as the Orisa Bongo Bunker. This is supremely powerful on 2CP maps. It is also supremely powerful on control point maps. In this video, Josh is going to break down for you guys in super detail how this strategy works. It is crazy powerful. Over to you, Josh, my good sir.
Yes, hello ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Josh, going to be going over a strategy that me and Sty have dubbed the Bongo Bunker. And the interesting thing is you might notice that there's some low quality footage there, and also you're going to have to excuse my voice. I'm a little bit under the weather, I'm a little bit sick at the moment, but we should muscle through just fine. But you might notice that there's some low quality footage. That's because this is actually from the preseason. This is the first time I got to see the Bongo Bunker strat. Now, if you're confused about what we mean by Bongo Bunker, don't panic. We're going to explain it over the course of the entire video. The biggest factors making it work, of course, being the Orisa, bringing the titular Bongo, which is a dumb but fun name for the supercharger, followed by heroes like Roadhog, Junkrat, especially Mercy, and Zenyatta. You can generally add a Tracer or a McCree to flavor, depending on what you want. Now, the footage in the background is from the preseason, and this is Dallas Fuel versus Houston Outlaws, sort of the first time they faced off in the preseason. And I was so confused when I saw this game. I was so confused because this map, the garden that you're seeing in the background, is usually so Pharah dominant. I was just like, what is Dallas doing? Why aren't they running Pharah? Why are they running all these immobile heroes? And then it dawned on me as I watched them play that they aren't actually playing to control the point. They're playing to control the smallest amount of the point, the smallest corner that they can find safely and sort of tuck themselves into, and then fighting for that space. So let's explain how it works. So before I show you the actual in-game footage, let's explain the strategy. Let's look at the strategy. As you can see, we've got lovely Oasis City Center here. Now, the thing with Oasis City Center is it's one of the largest control points. So if I do a little bit of drawing while I try and talk at the same time, this is going to go amazingly, I'm sure. The actual control point is enormous. It's absolutely huge. This space in game feels massive, and it feels massive for a good reason, right? It's very, very difficult to actually take control of this entire point, and you can often get very, very long stall outs on this map because, hey, you're spending so long sort of fighting for all of this space and trying to control this space that it's just difficult. So what the Bongo Bunker strat does is it just basically reduces this amount of space into as small as possible, because teams basically figured out and have kind of known this for a while, but only recently we've seen strategies develop that really exploit this using Orisa. And that's because when you control a point, you don't actually have to fight for all of this space. You actually only have to fight for, well, this little bit of space here. And as such, that makes it much, much easier, because all you have to do is make sure that someone is in this kind of area, and sort of what ends up actually happening, sort of the more realistic thing, is you end up controlling more like this bit of space here. What that means is that the rest of this space, that all the rest of this control point is completely meaningless. As long as you can have someone in this area, you are A-okay. You are still contesting the point, you are still fighting for the point, and you only have to worry about sort of holding into this little back area over here, where it's actually much, much easier to control than all the open space out here. You're much less vulnerable to stuff like Pharahs because you have a roof over your head. You have control of like 3 very tight choke points going into it, which is this pathway, and, well, let's actually draw it because I like drawing it, which is this pathway. Oh god, that's too thick. Too thick. Let's go smaller, and let's change color. There we go, ladies and gents. So you only have to really control this pathway, and this pathway. There is like some back routes into the sides, but hey, it's rare that you're gonna have teams going through those. And these are just like very, very narrow doorways. And when you're controlling that, it really does start working out well. The only concern I have is that this doorway, if I actually just swing the camera around, is very, very high up. So if you do like lose control of this space out here, you can actually get a Pharah just bombing rockets in over the top and doing quite a lot of damage. So let's take a look at a couple of in-game examples of this strategy. So the first thing you need to understand about the Bongo Bunker is that it features, well, a bongo and a bunker, which is pretty much all provided by the Orisa. The Orisa is sort of the linchpin of the comp, and it's not actually a new comp. It's one we've seen come up quite a lot on University. So this is New York Excelsior versus LA Valiant, an excellent match, and I highly recommend you go and watch it. But the big thing I want to point out to you with this series is that teams were running a mixture of this anti-dive Bongo Bunker sort of comp and a dive comp. LA Valiant running standard, pretty much old school dive, just with the Mercy and of course for current meta. And New York Excelsior were running the Bongo Bunker, and as you can see, they aren't contesting for like a huge amount of the point. If I pause it here, it's really, really clear to see that they don't actually care, and just to sort of reiterate on this point that I made before, they don't really care about sort of the overwhelming majority of the point. If you think about all the point outside of this sort of area they're actually fighting for, like you have all of this space here. Oh, so much space. All this space. All space. Just as I colour in. I'm sorry, this is sort of catharsis for me. I'm a bit under the weather. I think I mentioned this in the intro as well, but yeah, this is soothing for me, and it's fun. So they're not actually fighting for the entire point. They don't really care about the entire point. They only care about that little snippet over there that their Orisa is stood on, and that's the only thing they actually have to contest for. So once they actually manage to take control of this thread, once they manage to sort of clear everybody out and get a couple of good kills, because hey, it's Pine, he's shooting people, playing McCree, they're going to get a couple of good kills. Yeah, they only really have to worry about this tiny little bit of space over here, and that's all you're fighting for. That means that all of this open ground suddenly is worthless, and instead of fighting for this, you're fighting around these sort of narrow choke point areas here, and also the one that's sort of over here, or you can try and maybe get a flank on over here, but that's of course dangerous with the Roadhog. Now, the Roadhog is actually quite integral to the function of the comp. The Roadhog is sort of the big main thing that can sort of go out there, deal with anything that's sort of poking into you a little bit too much, can just go and handle threats as they sort of pop up and go and get a lot done. So now you can see that NYXL take control of the point. They're going to just set up in this sort of either sort of side room, in the small room, or they're just going to set up behind the point again. It actually turns out that they were on the opposite side of their spawn. It's the same theory. I mean, it doesn't matter where the enemy actually is, as long as you set up to cover a small part of the point. Now, that strategy isn't too novel here, but where it is really kind of novel is when you get to maps like Garden on Oasis, which is typically considered a pharmacy map, so teams normally run pharmacy on this. And instead of running the pharmacy, they're all just going to run this strat here. As you can see, they're just doing the same thing. They're just fighting for like this tiny little corner, using the indoor area to try and stay alive as much as possible, and then using stuff like the McCree, the Junkrat to try and make it very, very difficult to sort of dive into. Anything that does dive into that is just going to get killed on its way in. There's a lot of high damage heroes that you don't really want to be fighting in these close range environments, and it's also where the Orisa Halt and the Orisa Barrier can really get a lot of work done. Now, it doesn't go well for them in this first push because the dive from LA Valiant is just really nicely executed, and they manage to sort of peel it apart, pull a couple of things apart, get one or two quick pickups. But you can see like Pine's already on a ton of ultimate charge, everyone's on a ton of ultimate charge. And the thing with this strat, the big weakness I would say with this strat, is that once you lose that momentum, getting onto the point is actually quite difficult. If the dive or the pharmacy continues to control the chokes and plays aggressively, you can make it very, very difficult for the Orisa to get anywhere. I mean, that's Orisa's big weakness, right? She has a very hard time sort of getting to places where she needs to set up. Here she just manages to set up for free, but Unko, being Unko, gets a beautiful little kill there, and that's going to slow things down a little bit. Luckily, hey, Mercy exists, right? Hey, yay, Rez. Picks everyone back up so they can actually just continue fighting here. But you can see that they're just still playing in that very, very tight space, so sort of towards the back, just holding there and trying to let the enemy engage into them. They don't actually have to do anything too fancy. They can just try and hold the stairs or just hold that corner because they don't want to be fighting out in the open with these heroes. They have very, very sort of close range, closed in heroes where that's going to be very, very strong. So I've jumped to slightly later in the match because something kind of cute happens here, and I'm really impressed with sort of the inventiveness of this, which is that one of the big weaknesses of the Bongo Bunker is that it can let the enemy team just set up where they please. So you sort of conceded a huge amount of ground, right? So it gives the enemy time to set up fine angles. What the NYXL do instead is they actually just move to the other side of the point, so they're basically now holding from Valiant's side of the point, so to speak. And this actually really does cut down the pathways they can go. You can see that Pine just scoots up a kill onto Unko there, but if you can imagine sort of the layout from above, it makes it very, very difficult for LA Valiant to find an engagement path where they're not vulnerable to stuff like this, to the McCree coming in from the flank, or if they're trying to like push in through these narrow doorways, they're going straight into the narrow doorways. There's no open space here where, for example, Meko can pick up a huge triple kill because he's using a whole hog in a very, very small room, and stuff like various strategies like using the Bongo plus a whole hog, which is a huge amount of DPS, can really, really work there. Of course, they didn't use it there, but it is a very, very powerful tool in the team's back pocket. And these small environments is where Orisa really starts to shine. What I want to do now is sort of contrast this with something that I saw Dallas Fuel trying to do, using the similar strategy, using this strategy of the Bongo Bunker, but using it instead on that city center map. Okay, ladies and gents, let's jump to a different map and a different situation. This is London Spitfire against Dallas Fuel. Now, Dallas Fuel have been struggling as of late, but some interesting things happened in this match and has some sort of a cool knock-on effect with how the Bongo Bunker works and how Dallas Fuel was sort of using the strategy but not using the strategy. You can see that they're using the team comp, right? This is everything that we'd expect, and I was really expecting to see Seagull run straight into this side room here. The primary reason why the Bongo Bunker can work on this map is because, well, Junkrat is just really powerful right now, and when you start playing in those enclosed environments, those small spaces, and the grenades have time to just bounce around for a really long time and do a high amount of damage, or if anyone trying to come through these doorways is going to meet like a flashbang and a hook and a halt and then grenades and just damage and traps and oh god, it's horrible. It really is effective. But what Dallas Fuel ended up doing instead was they started playing on the point. This really confused me and surprised me quite a lot when I saw them do this. I actually still don't think that this is really the strongest way of playing. Maybe they've done it in scrims and it's worked out for them there, but it was kind of interesting to me for me to watch this. Now you can see it starts out okay for them. They basically win the first fight without too many issues, managing to get a couple of quick picks and get some good burst damage onto the enemy Mercy and take it down, but then things start falling apart the further the game goes. So rather playing to minimize their presence on the point, they're instead going to do a little bit of what Valiant was doing at the end of the first clip I showed, which was they are going to try and sort of play to contain people in the spawn and just stop people sort of moving through as many access areas as possible. Now this sort of falls apart a little bit because Gesture is he just goes for it and no one really punishes him, so he manages to get a kill on Seagull before being herded away by Taimu. And then after that, they just end up sort of defaulting. Like Dallas just default into this weird position where they're just standing in the middle of the point. They're getting surrounded from all sides by McCree, by the enemy Junkrat, who's now able to sort of start shooting into the back of the Orisa barrier, which sort of works like a little goal for him to sort of, I don't know, bounce nades into. It's kind of scary when you think about it. And it sort of starts going wrong there for Dallas Fuel. Now, it's okay for Dallas because this is City Center, and you can see already they built up 52% charge, and they're actually going to manage to stall this out for a considerable amount of time because, hey, this is how City Center works. It's a great big control point, and when everyone's sort of just jumping on it and stalling it, it really does let you stall out for a long time.
Hello, Josh, you there?
Now, crucially, as the next point gets set up, you can see that Dallas Fuel actually have a good number of ultimates sort of built up in their back pocket. Crucially, they don't have support ultimates, but what they're going to try and do is establish, like, go across the point and set up in the normal place for a Bongo Bunker. But of course, Junkrat is just complete and utter nonsense at this point, so that ends up happening, and it's pretty rough, and Taimu ends up playing in the street. Stop playing in the street. Don't play in the street, kids. It's not good for you. So that was that push. Now, the bright side for that one is that Dallas don't use any ultimates, right? So they can come back and sort of get stuff done. Now, I mentioned the hard part with the Bongo Bunker is just moving into position. What's quite nice is when the enemy just sort of comes to you and just ends up deleting themselves and even losing a high noon shootout. This went real bad for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, Gesture jumps in, Discord Orb goes on him right away, and this is a team comp meant to shred people that sort of jump into them. 500 hit points on a Winston, and even the Winston ultimate is not going to save you if you are stunned due to the hook, and then just focused down by everybody with a Discord Orb on you. It's going to make all the difference in the world and going to just get you destroyed. I will say, in this series, Taimu played out of his mind. When Taimu was on form, he is an impeccable player and really was doing a huge amount of good work in this series. I was very impressed with his Roadhog play, and he's doing exactly what he should be doing in the Bongo comp. He's just sort of roaming around, making his presence known, just killing people, finding hooks, being a little bit cheeky, maybe a little bit greedy in places, but where he can get away with it, he will absolutely be making a huge difference. So what goes wrong for Spitfire in this match? Well, they basically play into Dallas's hands in my mind. Basically, Gesture keeps on going in, being super aggressive, and gets punished for it a couple of times where he perhaps wasn't being expecting to. And as a result, it gives Effect a lot of space. Once you lose the pressure that Winston gives you and lose the ability for the Winston to sort of give you some space, it means that the other DPS on Dallas Fuel can be a little bit more active. It means that the supports are feeling less harassed, and it means that Effect, especially on that McCree, can just roam around a little bit more and shoot a little bit more. And just to finish this one out, we're going to take a look at another execution of the comp. You can see this is pretty much what we saw the Valiant do. They just set up in this little area over here. They're not fighting on the point. They're not fighting to contest the point. They're fighting in this small area. Now, what I like here is the adaptation from Dallas. They pull back. London Spitfire are running a really interesting comp. I'm actually going to pause the video before anyone dies, just so you have time to sort of look and see what they're running. Because this is actually a really cool little comp that I appreciate the theory of. It's just that I think it has a fundamental issue in the current meta. I think next meta, if people run Bongo Bunker, this comp will be amazing. In current meta, it has the fundamental flaw in that it doesn't run a Mercy. And Mercy, as we all know, is pretty good right now. But if you take a look at that comp and you think about all the AoE damage that Zarya could be doing, one anti-heal grenade could really do a lot of work as well, and there's not too much to stop it. There's no D.Va to eat it up. There's just an Orisa barrier to get around. It's not too tricky for the Ana to find some kind of angle. Reinhardt can get you in there, and then if people are fighting in that small space, that's even more AoE damage. Lucio, of course, can also get him in there nice and close. Unfortunately, it ends up going slightly wrong for London Spitfire. Again, they don't have that mercy, and Dallas actually do a very clever thing in that they just pull back. They sort of realize that, hey, this comp, if it's allowed to just run into us and fight us directly, we are just going to lose. So they just pull back, regroup, and then don't take any serious losses in that first fight, build up their more powerful support ultimates in the Mercy, Valkyrie, and the Transcendence, and then get ready and push in with those to retake the point. So I just wanted to put this video together to draw attention to one of the cool strategies. I'm going to sort of pester Style, and maybe we can call this series Strat Chat or something, I don't know. If you see some cool comps popping up in the Overwatch League, we can definitely keep poking in and taking a look at how these team comps work and what makes them really tick and get in under the hood. One of the most exciting times in Overwatch is almost upon us, as the meta will be changing once those Mercy and Junkrat nerfs go through, and when that does happen, you tend to see a lot of strategies sort of changing up, and a lot of the things that used to work stop working, so we're going to see a lot of adaptations start to occur when that comes through. Looking forward to start talking through some of these team comps with you as time goes on, but thank you otherwise for watching to the end. I've been Josh, just one voice amongst many, and I'll see you guys next time. Toodles.